Hello and welcome to the presentation video of results from Ireland's Labour Force Survey, or LFS, for Q1 2026. The LFS is a household survey carried out by the Central Statistics Office and is the official source for employment and unemployment estimates in Ireland. The official labour market classification of respondents to the survey is based on International Labour Organization, or ILO, concepts and definitions. And you can find out more information about the survey from our website or by contacting us at labour@cso.ie. Before looking at the Q1 results in detail, a preliminary note to say that today's results incorporate the new NACE Rev 2.1 as the primary classification of industrial sectors. Employment estimates quoted today results and available now on our PX Stat data portal reflect the updated classification series back to 2019. Estimates with NACE Rev 2.0 classification will still be published on PX Stat. NACE Rev 2.1 has introduced new concepts at all levels of the classification and has restructured a number of existing headings. At the same time, major efforts have been made to maintain the structure of the classification in areas that did not explicitly require change based on the new concepts. Some analysis of the impact of the new classification is provided on our website, cso.ie. The published infographic for Q1 is shown in this slide and presents headline LFS results for the quarter. The employment rate for those aged 15 to 64 was 73.3%, down 1.4 percentage points from Q1 2025. The unemployment rate for those aged 15 to 74 was 4.9%, up 0.6 percentage points since last year. The participation rate for those aged 15 and over was 65.0%, down 0.8 percentage points on last year. The annual change in labour force since 2021 is shown on the left. It shows that the 0.6% increase in the labour force is the lowest growth rate in 5 years. The number of people in employment, unemployment, and not in the labour force for Q1 2026 and the previous year by ILO definition is shown in this slide. The estimated number of people in employment in Q1 2026 stood at just under 2.8 million, relatively unchanged from Q1 2025. The number of persons classified as unemployed increased by 17,600 or 14.2% to 141,800, while those not in the labour force increased by 62,700 or 4.1% to 1,579,100. The seasonally adjusted figures for the last 4 years are shown here. Seasonally adjusted employment has declined 15,100 or 0.6% from the previous quarter to 2,812,000. Seasonally adjusted unemployment increased 9,100 from the last quarter to 146,700 in Q1 2026. Those not in the labour force increased by 20,700 on the quarter to 1,555,000. That's the highest figure in 5 years. Focusing now on the results for employment in Q1. The estimate for the number of people in employment was 2,794,500, an increase of 400 persons compared with Q1 2025. The employment rate for persons aged 15 to 64 is 73.3%. That's down 1.4 percentage points relative to a year ago. The previously mentioned seasonally adjusted estimate for the number of persons in employment in Q1 was more than 2.8 million, decreasing by 15,100 or 0.6% compared to the last quarter, Q4 2025. The chart here shows the employment rate for males and females in employment for Q1 2026 and the previous year. It shows that the employment rate has decreased for both males and females. The male employment rate declined 0.9 percentage points to 77.3%, while the female employment rate declined 1.9 percentage points to 69.3%, the lowest rate since Q1 2023. The chart in this slide presents the employment for different age groups for Q1 2026 and 2025. There was a decrease in employment among younger age cohorts, with the largest decrease in volume terms among the 35 to 44-year-olds, which declined 18,300 or 2.6% to 685,700. However, the largest decline in percentage terms was among youths aged 15 to 24, which declined 3.5% to 302,300. The largest increase in volume terms was among the 45 to 54-year-olds, increasing 20,300 to 677,800, while the largest increase in percentage terms was among the 65 and older cohort, up 10.3% to 133,000 in the year. The 6-year trend in full-time and part-time employment is shown in this slide. The number of full-time workers increased by 348,600, or 18.5%, over the 6-year period, and by 32,200, or 1.5%, in the last year. The more than 2.3 million in full-time employment is the highest reported figure in a Q1 in the series. However, while the 561,500 in part-time employment rose by 15.9% over that period, it declined 31,900, or 5.4%, since last year. The chart in this slide shows total employment by the new NACE Rev 2.1 economic classification. NACE R, Human Health and Social Work, is the largest sector with 382,100. That's followed by industry and wholesale and retail trade with 350,100 and 299,100 respectively. The smallest sectors is the administration and support services, followed by agriculture, forestry and fishing. While this chart shows the top growing industrial sectors are NACE Rev 2.1 classification by employment volume growth in Q1 2026 with a year ago. The construction sector had the largest increase, adding 20,500 jobs, an increase of 11.7%. This is followed by transportation and storage, up 20,400 or 18.2%, and industry, which increased by 17,600 or 5.3%. There were also increases among the human health and social work and education. This slide shows the bottom sectors by change in employment volume. The information and communication sector had the largest decrease, down 20,300 or 10.7%. There were decreases in the number of persons employed in the accommodation and food services sector, which was down 16,800 or 9.0%. Professional, scientific and technical activities, which decreased 13,000 or 6.6%, while the administration and support services sector was down 11,200 or 10.1%. The estimated total hours worked per week in Q1 2026 stood at 86.3 million hours, down 0.2 million hours or 0.2% in the year. The chart here shows the hours worked per week by NACE Rev 2.1 sector for Q1 2026. While industry reported the second most employment, it was the most hours worked with 11.9 million hours worked per week. This is followed by human health and social work with 11.2 million hours worked per week. The chart in this slide shows the annual volume change in employed persons by the status of their employment. In the latest quarter, there were 25,900 more people who classified themselves as self-employed compared with a year ago. That's an increase of 7.3%. Of those self-employed, the largest increase was among self-employed with no paid employees, which increased 23,200 or 9.7%. At the same time, the number of employees decreased 24,400 to 2,394,000, down 1.0% on the year. Assisting relatives decreased by 1,100 to 21,500. The chart here looks at the change in employed persons by their working location over the last 6 years. In Q1 2026, 525,200 people worked usually from home, defined as at least 50% of their days worked in the previous 4 weeks. That's down 29,300 or 5.3% since Q1 2025 and down 321,500 or 40.0% since the peak during the pandemic. A further 464,900 were working from home sometimes, down 15,500 from the last year, but up 126,900 since before the pandemic. Those that never worked from home increased 46,600 to almost 1.8 million from last year. Turning now to unemployment, and using standard ILO criteria, the number of persons aged 15 to 74 years who are unemployed in Q1 stood at 141,800, with an associated unemployment rate of 4.9%. The number unemployed was up 17,600 or 14.2% when compared with Q1 2025 when the unemployment rate was 4.3%. The seasonally adjusted estimate for the number of unemployed is 146,700. That's up 9,100 or 6.6% on the previous quarter. And the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate in Q1 was 5.0%. That's up by 0.3 percentage points on the previous quarter. The unemployment rate for Q1 this year and the previous 2 years is shown here. It shows that there has been an increase in the unemployment rate for both males and females. The male unemployment rate increased 0.3 percentage points to 4.6%, while the female unemployment rate was up 0.8 percentage points to 5.1%. Here we can see the estimates for females classified as unemployed by age group. It shows that there were increases in unemployed across all age cohorts except youths. The largest increase was in the 25 to 34-year-olds, up 5,800 or 43.6%, and the 35 to 44-year-olds, up 5,100 or 44.7%. While this slide shows the estimates for the males classified as unemployed by age group, it shows that there were increases in unemployed across all age cohorts except those aged 35 to 44. The largest increases were among the younger age groups. Those aged 15 to 24 increased 3,100 or 20%, while males aged 25 to 34-year-olds increased by 3,300, an annual increase of 20.1%. And this led to an increase in the unemployment rate for all age cohorts except those aged 65 and over. The highest unemployment rate was among youths aged 15 to 24, which increased 0.7 percentage points to 10.2%. The largest year-on-year increase was seen among the 25 to 34-year-olds, up 1.5 percentage points to 6.5%, while there was a slight drop in the unemployment rate for those aged 65 and over. The unemployment rate and the percentage change in the unemployment rate by NUTS 3 regions are shown here. The border region reported the highest unemployment rate at 6.4%, up 1.5 percentage points on last year. This was followed by the Mid-East with 5.7%, up 1.6 percentage points, while Dublin was up 0.9 percentage points to 5.2%. The Southwest had the lowest unemployment rate at 3.4%, as unchanged since last year. The chart here shows unemployed by the duration of unemployment for the last 2 years. 41,300 people were classified as long-term unemployed, that is, unemployed for 12 months or longer, up from 25,900 in 2025. This accounted for 29.8% of all unemployed people compared to 21.6% the previous year. The long-term unemployment rate for persons aged 15 to 74 stood at 1.4% in Q1. Turning attention to the overall labour force, and the ILO defined labour force comprised of all persons aged 15 and over who are classified as either employed or unemployed was estimated to be almost 2.94 million in Q1. That's up 0.6% on a year ago. However, as previously mentioned, this is the lowest growth rate in 5 years. The estimated participation rate for Q1 was 65.0%, down 0.8 percentage points. The seasonally adjusted participation rate is 65.5%, that's down 0.4 percentage points from the previous quarter. The chart in this slide looks at the estimated number of people in the labour force by age group and shows that there has been a growth in labour market participation among older age categories, while there was a decline in younger age cohorts. Those aged 45 to 54 increased 21,300 or 3.2% to almost 700,000. The youths decreased 346,400 to 336,600, while those aged 35 to 44 declined 14,800 or 2.0% to 714,400. The labour force by citizenship for the last 3 years is shown in this slide. There was an increase of 55,300 Irish citizens in the Irish labour force since 2024, an increase of 2.5%. There was also an increase of those from the rest of the world during the same period, up 57,000 or 23.1%. Citizens of the European Union were up 6,200, while there was a decrease of 1,700 from the UK. In terms of change in the labour force, it had increased by 18,000 to 2,939,300 in Q1. There was a positive demographic effect of 40,600 and a negative participation effect of 22,600 over the year. And this led to a slight decrease in the participation rate over the year of 0.8 percentage points to 65.0%. The seasonally adjusted labour force also decreased by 7,500 or 0.3% on the previous quarter. The estimated number of people who are classified as not in the labour force was 1,579,100. That's up 62,700 or 4.1% on the previous year. The potential additional labour force, that is people who would like to work but are either available but are not actively seeking work, or are seeking work but are not immediately available to begin, was 103,700, a decrease of 14,200 or 12.1% compared with a year ago. Those that do not want a job increased by 7.1% to over 1 million. Those inactive and over 75 increased 4.4% to 359,200, while those that want a job but are not available and not seeking declined 6.8% to 87,400 in Q1 2026. Labour market slack, which comprises unemployed, part-time underemployed and a potential additional labour force, is shown in this slide for Q1 2026 as well as the previous year. The total for labour market slack in Q1 was 379,200 people, an increase of 5,700 or 1.5% on the same quarter last year. The increase was seen among the unemployed and the part-time underemployed, rising 17,600 and 2,400 respectively. Focusing now on young people, those aged 15 to 24 years in the labour market. The employment rate was 42.9%, that's down 2.4 percentage points on the year. The unemployment rate was 10.2%, that's up 0.2 percentage points. The participation rate is 47.7%, down 2.3 percentage points. And the NEET rate, that is percentage of 15 to 24-year-olds not in employment, education or training, was 6.4%, an increase of 1.2 percentage points. And so in summary, the employment rate has decreased by 1.4 percentage points to 73.3%. This is driven by a decline in female employment. However, there was a growth in full-time employment, up 1.5% to more than 2.3 million, the highest figure reported for Q1 in the series. There was strong growth in employment in industry and construction sectors, while there was decline in the services sector. That was driven by the information and communication, as well as accommodation and food services. For unemployment, we have seen an increase of 14.2% to 141,800. This gave rise to an increase in the unemployment rate of 4.9%. This has been driven by females and across all working age groups. Annual growth in labour force is 0.6%. This is the lowest seen in 5 years, and this led to a drop in participation rate of 0.8 percentage points to 65.0%. That concludes the results presentation for Labour Force Survey for Q1 2026. The full results are now available on our website, cso.ie. LFS quarterly results for Q2 2026 are scheduled for publication in August. Thanks for watching.